Visual novels aren't real games. I have bad opinions and no friends. Listen, if you unironically talk like that cold open, I'm sorry, but we can't be friends. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe to the Startown Patreon. The World Ends With You is a very good game, and visual novels are a very good medium. It took me 14 years to play TWEWY 1, but better late than never. Gonna be talking about my first time playing this game on the Nintendo Switch, and how that shaped my experience. I'll drop a spoiler warning when we get to more plot-related shenanigans. If you haven't, please check out this game for yourself. I promise it's worth it. I never played the DS version of The World Ends With You, so I asked some folk in the Discord to explain to me how the combat was supposed to work. And in short, TWEWY DS mechanics are quite unique, using both buttons.
Brainwave, main cycle, gotta hike and collect, select, show me your best at crystal blisters, it's all over now. Cycle cane, you're sucking 90 more candy cane. Cold cake, cold big freak, got a high kick, Mr. Twister, moist with blistering. Take it up, step aside and see the world effects as effects take a bow to the moon.
However, none of that works because they basically threw the game into Google Translate and said, here, now give us $40. I experienced none of the joys of TWEWY combat when I first started playing the game on the Switch. The puck-based synchronization is lost, the visual language of the game is immediately cluttered, the touch coordinated sense is gone if you play in docked mode, and in exchange you get motion controls and a clunky reach around system to control your partner. Now, despite all these notable downgrades, combat isn't a total wash. And that's because the best way to experience TWEWY combat on the Switch is to hop into co-op mode, take your two drifting Joy-Con, slap them into the controller clip, and just start swinging. You have to recenter your controls occasionally, but goddamn is it fun to just shut off the brain and flail about. At most, I try to remember how I'm generally supposed to swing the Joy-Con, but that is it. One late game boss and the concert boss fight are really the only times the lack of a DS actually made this combat unfun. The hell is this? Why gotta make the non-existent DS top screen suddenly matter? Sure, they gave you this hint earlier, but if it doesn't matter for 99% of combat interactions, I'm just gonna ignore it. Switch TWEWY combat is generally really easy, so without a superior version to compare it to, I was satisfied with it. I have my complaints, but overall the fighting was at least somewhat salvageable. The rest of the game, however, untenable. The visual presentation looks good for the most part, but the weird parallax occasionally made me a bit motion sick, and even worse than that was loading into a new area with a plot. Hate it. Absolutely hate it. I don't know if it's just a holdover from how the game loaded on the DS, but it doesn't feel good to see the overworld load in for a second and then immediately jump into the visual novel portion of the game. And to make it even more confusing, sometimes that cutscene will play before you hit the trigger to load the new area. So after the cutscene finishes, you jump back to the first area and then have to walk to the next room again. It's kinda disorienting. And while it's admittedly very minor, this game is a visual novel with extra bits, so it happens all the time. And while the janky loading is definitely grating, you know what's worse? The entirety of the menu UI. It so clearly was meant to be a touch interface, and while it's all well and good for the handheld players, the motion control menuing is actual pain. Selecting and dragging items feels so much worse without the tangible senses that come with tapping the screen. You cannot slap the well thought out touch system onto some motion controls and say, all augmented motion systems are the same. That's racist, because you can integrate motion controls into button input gameplay just fine, but you have to be thoughtful when making those transitions. I did a whole video breaking down how to successfully achieve that like a year ago. Go watch that. Menuing is pain, the combat is a spammy shadow of its former self, and by and large, I'm very critical of basically everything about this game. There's a motion-controlled Pogs minigame, and when I had to play it, there was no joy in my heart. It all drained away. But in spite of my bitching and moaning for the past 5 minutes, I loved the experience. And that's because visual novels are good. Listen, I know I just spent the entire video so far complaining, but trust me, the rest of the video is explaining why it's worth it. That being said, we're going to be getting into spoiler territory. You've had your warning, so click away or whatever, play the game, please, do it. Okay. A story about a boy with introverted emo tendencies learning how to open up to others is such a wonderful story. Learning to make friends is so important in life, and this game tells that story so well. There's some gameplay mechanics that support these themes, but even on the DS, this was supplementary to the all-powerful visual novel. Generally speaking, I try to look at the very complex technical aspects of the game. I feel smart when talking about the intricacies of how loops in games iterate simple concepts to expand into complex systems that can be explored for hours. And by comparison, pressing A as you read text is incredibly simple. But again, that's just a derivative explanation of the visual novel format. The World Ends With You is an excellently written story filled to the brim with heart and memes. truly ahead of its time. On top of that, the visual novel style tells the story at a brisk but digestible pace, and not just because of the speech bubble presentation. This is just what visual novels are good at. A well-written story in the visual novel format has the potential to command your attention better than any cutscene. The player's desire to unravel the mystery of who killed Neku, or just to hear Beat be a lovable himbo dial to 11, brings purpose to pressing the A button. The input itself may not be engaging for its complexity, but motivations for doing so are incredibly fulfilling. And that's not just in TWEWY. In any visual novel with extra bits, more often than not, these are the most memorable parts of the game. Hades isn't a roguelite, it's a visual novel with some hitting. Persona isn't a turn-based JRPG, it's a visual novel with Pokemon sprinkled in. And listen, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I really want to drive home how powerful the visual novel medium is. Aside from Pokemon, I'm not even a huge fan of turn-based JRPGs, but every time I've started one or watched a stream, the best parts always come from the visual novel component.
Yukiko-senpai bathes in too?
You all need to touch some grass.
A PNG slides on screen and it elevates the emotion of a scene. And sure, there's plenty of emotive nuance to be had with 3D models, but not all the time. A single well-defined gesture can speak a million more words than a half-baked 3D model. Anyways, I know I spent most of the video complaining about The World Ends With You, but I assure you it is a game well worth your time. Not sure if I'll do a video on it, but I do hope to get around to Neo TWEWY 2 soon. My friends have been loving it, and even though it took me a while, I'm a fan of the series too. But maybe I should finish up this Final Mix endgame content first. Hello, and first off, thank you so much to my patrons for supporting me. If you'd like your lovely name in the credits alongside some exclusive digital art, head on over to patreon.com/StarTown, link in the description, and join at any tier 420 or higher. That's a wee joke. I worked really hard on it. But yeah, thanks again to the supporters. And also, if you want to stay up to date with some of my projects and just chat about video games and media in general, follow me on any of my social or join the Discord, link also in the description for that one. Alright, that's all from me. I hope you have a good day. Be sure to drink some water. Alright, have a good one. Bye-bye.